So it has been almost like 3-4 months that I did a book review because I was left quite blank after reading the Remembrance of the Earth's Past trilogy by Cixin Liu. So I have read a couple of more books after that. I think I read the Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. But a month back, almost a month or 2 months back, I read one more book, which is The Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So again, this book again reaches the same, I won't say it reaches, it is also a story being told at a grand level. Again, whenever I find books that have generations baked into the book's story, that creates by itself an interesting intrigue that you want to know what is happening through these generations that we as humans cannot even comprehend, right? So our lives are what, like 80 years, 70 years, and then we die, right? But any book that encompasses like thousands and thousands of years, maybe millions, or in case of Cixin Liu into billions of years and a restart of time itself, so this creates an intrigue on its own. So that's why I found Children of Time after doing a lot of research, because this is again, I think, a 3-part series. I've only read the first part till now, and again it has been a very good read. So I read it more than 1.5 months back, but then after that I had to travel a lot, and then I had a relocation of my apartment also, so I didn't get time to make the video, and in a way I had forgotten parts of the book. So please forgive me if I miss some parts or some plots, but then at an overall level I'll just try to give you an idea and a summary of the book, right? So again, because the book encompasses thousands of years, I think it's in the tens of thousands, so you see evolution of humanity, you see evolution of society as a whole in a completely different perspective. So the book starts with a scientist named Avarna Karn. So they are on a spaceship called Brin 2, and this is a very futuristic human civilization. So they are, I think, like 20 light years away from the Earth, and they are basically searching for different planets which are being terraformed so that future humans can come and live in those planets. So one of these planets was Karn's world. Basically Karn herself named that planet. So Karn was a very acclaimed scientist, and she belonged to one fraction of human civilization which believed in scientific progress, and at the same time they also believed that humans have been spoiled by a lot of things that has happened over the past, and humans basically needed a restart. And how to restart humanity? So take the closest species to humanity, which was like apes, this is monkeys, and then infuse them with a nanovirus that will act as a catalyst to evolution. So which would usually have taken like millions of years, that can be summarized in like a few hundred or thousand of years, right? So with that in mind, Brin 2 set out for this new planet called Karn's world, like 220 light years away. And upon reaching the planet, Avarna Karn was to release a shuttle which would carry some monkeys, and then the nanovirus would be spread on to these monkeys. I don't know what the means was, maybe by injection or airborne. So somehow the nanovirus would be given to these monkeys who would get infected by these, and then the fast tracking of evolution would start. But as you know, humans would always have some sort of conflict internally, right? So while this community, which was scientifically driven, was fighting to find the new set of humans who would take humanity forward, there was another set of humans who belonged to an organization called NUN. You can search the full form in Google, I forgot it. So this organization basically believed that humans were the pinnacle of evolution, and whatever evolution has to happen to humanity would happen naturally. We should not play gods and then lead it towards directions which we ourselves are not aware of. So, and because the civilization had progressed to that level, this was the biggest conflict in society. So there was no fight between countries. At that time, the fight was only between people who believed in science to an extreme level and the people who would believe in the natural way of things to an extreme level, right? So coming back to Avarna Karn, so just as she is about to release the shuttle with the monkeys and the virus, there is a mutiny that spreads in her ship. So one of the important crew members declared this internal war that he will not let this happen. So he basically puts the I think the engine of the spaceship to detonate, right? However, just before detonation, Avarna Karn escapes to the shuttle and then releases her shuttle from the ship, and pretty soon the rest of the ship brings to basically explodes. And after a short while, Avarna Karn also notices carriage carrying the monkeys drop into the planet, also the virus. When she notices it, she puts herself to sleep just to wait in time. Let's say I think 40 years was the time she set the timer to be woken up to see the progress that her own children have made, right? Her children, that is the monkeys. She told the AI, she actually uploaded her conscience partly to the AI and told the AI to awake her only if there is a situation that needs her attention. And she also sends a signal out into the entire universe, telling the universe of her presence in that locality, right? And she also gets to know by that time, I think it was 14 years when she got to know about all these things. She also got to know that a massive mutiny has happened in Earth and also in all the other places where humanity had reached. And because all these places were not fully self-sufficient, and because of the mutiny, a lot of destruction has happened. Technology was wiped out in a way. So these other satellite locations of the Earth, which were not fully independent, these also died off because of lack of technological support, right? So Earth basically started afresh, and she again put herself to hibernation only to be awakened up if something of her needed her response, at the same time releasing the signal that she is present there. Now the story moves 2000 years forward and entirely from the ship's point of view, we see ourselves looking at the world through the eyes of a spider. Now the second important character is introduced, which is Portia. So Portia is basically a spider who is again doing spidery things. But she is the first spider who has gotten infected by the nanovirus, which has finally made its way into the planet, right? So it shows that she is taking help of a few other spiders. So just imagine the kind of awakening you feel when straight out of a sci-fi story till now you directly move to the eyes of a spider, something that you would have never even considered in your wildest imagination. However, she's woken up after like 14 years only to be told by the ship's AI that the thing carrying the monkeys had burst out. I think it caught flames while entering the atmosphere because of lack of proper landing procedure, and I mean, you're not sure what happened to it, right? Then she goes back into hibernation. So now there Portia was basically taking help from a few other spiders, and then they were basically doing a hunt, I think. So spiders usually hunt solo, but because of the impact of these nanovirus, she's now taking help from two other spiders, Bianca and Fabian. So just remember the names of these spider characters. So the way the story has been told is, so there is one scientific advancement that you will keep on finding across all the sci-fi story books that you read, that is hibernation. Because these stories expand generations, thousands of years, so hibernation, successful hibernation is something that has to be baked in to keep the continuity of characters. So the continuity of human characters was maintained through hibernation. The continuity of spider characters was maintained through the names of these characters. So Portia, Fabian and Bianca would repeat throughout the generations, but at the same time what would happen is in actuality the spiders would be dying off, then maybe generations after generation another spider would be coming up. Now she or he or she, I mean in spider society, I'll come to that point, so that she would gain all the experience of her previous generations, and she would basically, so this new Portia would basically carry all the learnings of the previous Portia and carry the story forward. So in human society, hibernation was used as a tool to carry forward information. In spider society, this term was called understanding. So understanding is something that is passed on to such, any accrued knowledge is also passed on to generations. So accrued knowledge also becomes genetic in the case of spiders in this novel. So this is one assumption that the writer has taken the liberty to make. This was happening at Kern's world, right? On top of Kern's world, remember, Avarna Kern is still there, circling the planet in her satellite, half of her consciousness uploaded to the AI named Eliza, while Kern herself is hibernating, right? So now, at the same time period, 2000 years after the mutiny in Bryn 2, in Earth. So Earth by that time had gone through a new phase of civilization. So what I mean by this is that mutiny at that 2000 years back had destroyed basically everything related to technology. Earth had reached like biblical times, right? And things started afresh. So over 2000 years, again the progress of human civilization took place, starting from the scratch, right? People learned how to know that something, there are planets and space and stars above them. Then they started the industrial revolution, and all sorts of development, finally making spaceships, and then finally again moving back to space. At the same time, they were also aware that there was this old empire of which Avarna Kern was a part, that they had such superior technology that it was almost like godlike, right? So they were aware of this. So this 2000 years later, they again made a spaceship called Gilgamesh. Again, it has a biblical connotation. Gilgamesh was also the name of the ark ship that was to carry the living beings from Earth past the Great Flood, right? So the name of the spaceship was Gilgamesh, and Earth had by that time become almost sort of inhabitable. So Gilgamesh was one of the very few ships that had left Earth in search of habitable planets. Now this Gilgamesh again had some very interesting crew members. The lead was a person called Gyuin, very strange character, so I'll get into his character details in some time. Then there was a lady named Lane, who was again a very strong female character. She was basically the de facto lead of the Gilgamesh project. And then we had Holstein, who was basically a old language expert. So he was someone who had some knowledge of old scripts, and someone who knew history and etc. So the point was that Gilgamesh has basically received a signal from Kern's world about the presence of a habitable planet there. So they set off on their trajectory towards Kern's world, right? And again, all the important members were put into hibernation. Now Gilgamesh was also carrying like 500,000, so 500,000 human embryos, which would again be used to repopulate the planet once they reach there, right? And they also had some important key crew members who would again be, they would be circulating from hibernation to working phase and then back into hibernation, so that at an overall level, the minimum number of human lives are wasted, right? So Gilgamesh again, once they reach close enough to Kern's world, they again start communicating with the planet, right? With not exactly with the planet. So they also by this time realize that the planet is also sending some signals, right? That they are reaching. So it's not only Kern's satellite that is sending signals, it's also the planet that is sending signal. So they reach in the vicinity of Kern's world, and then the story again moves to the other phase of this storyline, which is through Portia's eyes, the spider world, right? So there again, the spider world has progressed, the society has progressed in a large extent. So from solo hunters to hunter gatherers, now they are I think domesticating other organisms. So they are domesticating aphids, which would then give milk, meat, etc. Then they also get into fights with ants, which are the next their biggest threat. But at the same time, they learn how to control ants over time using various mechanisms like scents, etc. Right? They can program ants in a way just like how we program our machines. So ants becomes their machine. They also discover religion by this point of time. So they find one sort of transmitter, basically something that had dropped out from Kern's satellite, and then that would basically have some signals that Kern would be sending from time to time to the planet. So in Kern's mind, she still thinks that the monkeys are there. So and the signals that she's getting from the planet through that transmitter is being sent by monkeys. So she is again sending signals to the planet, giving them cues on how to develop their society further, right? So in a way, the spiders are considering Kern as a messenger of God. So religion starts off there again. That is the progress of the story from the spider's end. Now coming back to Gilgamesh. So in Gilgamesh, again, once they reach Kern's world, they send a signal to Kern's satellite, where again the AI first responds that Gilgamesh should pass away and then not dare land on this planet. At the same time, it also awakens Avarna Kern. Avarna Kern, again, she is being shown as a very selfish character. So now she is aware of the mutiny that has happened on Earth. She is not sure which fraction of humans are these humans coming from. So that is one part of her, one reason for her mistrust. Secondly, she has always considered humans to be not worthy of the next line of succession. So she feels that her monkeys are more deserving. So she anyway doesn't want her experiment to be polluted by these new humans. So she again provides a strict warning. So she again, being technologically far superior, she is able to infiltrate into Gilgamesh's computer systems, and she wants them to move away right away. And if they don't, then she would just cause explosion in the entire Gilgamesh and just burn it to ashes. Now, having no other option, Gwyn, who is the commander of the ship, agrees, and he leaves the planet behind. So Abarna Kern gives him another terraforming planet's location where she says that he can maybe find another refuge. So he tells Abarna that he's leaving for that planet. At the same time, when they reach this spot from where Abarna Kern can no longer see Gilgamesh, there he makes a plan that there is a moon, uninhabited moon of that gas giant, where he wants to have a colony of, leave behind a few humans, and then he would go and explore the other planet and then take a call. So he didn't also want to leave Kern's world completely, because he has already gotten a planet, and by that time they had also sent a drone in between, which had actually got some photographs of the planet showing a habitable living environment, and also the spiders, the 30 centimeter large spiders living there. So he wanted to leave a colony at a moon of the gas giant next to Kern's world. But now who to leave behind? Because the folks who would be left behind also knew that this is a death sentence, right? They would not be able to survive, and it would be generations by the time Gwyn returns and then does anything. So there is a mutiny again, a small set of mutineers. They also kidnap Holstein and Lane because they were some of the most important members and they wanted to have some leverage. So they kidnap them, and then instead of going to that moon, they steal a shuttle and tries to reach the Kern's world. In the meantime, also what happens is, Holstein, while traveling towards Kern's world, he also shows the images of that planet, that spiders are living there, to Kern, and puts her into a shock. And in the meantime, while Kern is under shock, they make the landing towards the planet. Now while landing there, part of the shuttle which was carrying their supplies got damaged, and they had a very rough landing on the planet. At the same time, under Gwyn's ask, Karst, who was the general of Gilgamesh, he also follows them and then lands on the planet. So while landing, he also makes a pact with Kern that he has come there So just to make a story up to Karan and avoid destruction, Karan also got to know that these are mutineers who have not, to which Gwen had not agreed, and they had escaped to the planet. So again, after reaching there, Kars basically makes a demand that Lane and Holstein he wants to take back with him. At the same time, so he gets Holstein and Lane back, and when they enter the shuttle, he just straight away shoots the rest of the mutineers, just straight away killing them, Scholes and all the others. Nessel, who was one of the female character among the mutineers, she escaped along with some other mutineers, and they run into the forest and they leave. Now coming back to the spider world, so there again the spiders are having some war with the ants. So ants were their biggest enemies. So ants were not conscient yet, but they, because of their numerous numbers, they pose the big threat to the spiders. Now by this time, Bianca, who was the scientist within the spider clan, so she discovered that by using some sort of scents and all, the ants can be controlled. So she first creates some ants which are domesticated, and then using these ants, and I think some beetles also were introduced in between. Ants basically were not able to detect beetles because of some scent. Now using that scent, they somehow managed to program the ants as per their will. And at that time they also noticed something falling to them from the skies, right? And they thought that it was some signal from the messenger in the satellite above. And now that because they have progressed sufficiently ahead and they were able to defeat the ants, they took it as a gift from their god and the messenger. So they find the humans, they capture Nessel, and then parallelly it was shown later that they ran different sorts of experiments on Nessel also to understand more about these giants. Now coming back to to Gilgamesh. Now again, they left a colony, and I'm not sure whether it is not relevant, so I'll forget. I'll skip whether they left a colony on the moon or not. So they left for the other planet, which Karan had basically directed them to go to. So there they found that it was not livable. It was overtaken by a lot of fungus that is preying on each and everything that was lying there in the planet. It was basically unhospitable. At the same time, Gwen found that there was an old empire base on that planet. So old empire, again, Karan's level base. So he wanted basically to explore what superior sorts of technologies he could find there. He also got Holstein. Within this time there were multiple hibernations in which Holstein was left to hibernate, and then Lane was again hibernating for some time, then she would be awakened to manage the ship. So this thing was happening from time to time. So Holstein was awakened back, and at that point of time Gwen had basically found a upload device. So this is one of those devices with which Karan had uploaded her consciousness to AI, and Gwen, being a megalomaniac, he also wanted his consciousness to be uploaded into Gilgamesh's computer system, just to be immortal. By this time he had become very old, and there were many generations of people that he had woken up, and they were basically following him like crazy. They didn't know about their existence. They were like his blind followers. These were not even like normal humans. They didn't think like normal humans. So he formed a cult that would follow him. So again, at some point of time, it's shown that he finally managed to get a part of his consciousness uploaded. At the same time, he was not able to do the full upload. He was basically killed by Karst, I think, before the upload was fully complete. And because of that upload, the system of Gilgamesh was shaken. So it was not built to utilize technology of the old empire, right? So although Gwen was killed and his cult was disbanded, but Lane, who was the next in line, she was basically the controller. At the same time, with Gwen's removal, she became the controller of the ship. So at some point of time, it was also told that Holstein and Lane made out. So at some time later on in the series, it is shown that they already have a embryo together. Right. So Holstein again went back to hibernation. Lane couldn't go to hibernation because she had to stay awake because Gilgamesh had become really weak and it had to be repaired, and Lane was needed for the reparations. So coming back to the spider society, now one thing that was funnily tried to show humanity's flaws or some of our basic characteristics. So now in the spider society, the females were the ones who were at the lead of everything. So the males were basically minnows. They didn't have any say over anything. Even their names were not valued at all. So in the male's only responsibility task in life was to help a female to mate, and after that, in the mating ritual, the male would be killed. So slowly and slowly, as evolution progressed in in Karn's world, slowly and slowly these male spiders also started to get their own individuality. They also started their own fight to get their freedom, to get their basic human rights established. So over time, so the entire civilization, if you go into to read the book, there will be layers above layers of stories being built over, and each one is equally interesting, which would throw lights on some very fine details of how human society has progressed, right? So over time, from minnows to to males becoming like significant members, and at the end, even the male character was Fabian. So he was in a way helped the entire planet survive, right? So that's how a completely different view of humanity was shown through the spider's eyes. So anyway, so that's how society was progressing in Karn's world. At the same time, religious fanaticism was also increasing. So a lot were following Karn's ideologies, which at times were helping them progress technologically, but at the same time they were also making them fanatical. For example, Karn again had her own flaws, right? She would not even consider humanity worthy of progress. So these spiders again, the way they were getting signals from Karn, so some of the things they were not to their liking. For example, I forgot, makes no sense. You have to read the book. Okay. So again, so there was a faction which would not blindly believe in Averna Karn, and and they would believe in more in science. So there was this cultural war that would take place at the same time, and finally at the end of it, there was a balance that was reached between religious fanaticism and scientific progress, just like the state humans are currently, right? So that's how things were progressing in Karn's world, and over time, they also became slowly and slowly aware of the satellite that was revolving them. It was not a godly object, it was a physical object that was present there. And then they started their own astronomical developments, their own space race, where they started building their own spaceships and all to reach that planet. And slowly they also became aware of the impending invasion by the Gilgamesh. So now again, many years back, Holstein is again woken from hibernation, and after waking up he finds that Lane has become very old, and Lane also informs him that their child, who is one of the embryos that Gilgamesh is carrying. And again she asks Holstein to go back to sleep because she wanted at least one of the parents to be present who would help their child get a new life in the new planet. So Holstein again gets into hibernation. So by this time the spiders had well established their space cities and shuttles. So they have a thriving astronaut spiders who were living in space, right? They built a sky nest, which is supposed to be their own space station. By this time they also came into contact with Averna Karn, and they got to know that it was not a messenger of God but an alien species, again whose directions to some extent they were following, to some extent they were not. For example, Averna Karn basically gave them a directive that they have to exterminate all humans upon contact. So this is something that we'll come to know later on, right? So they were still, what I mean to say is they were still evaluating what to do. Instead of taking right away the decision to exterminate humans, right? Now what happens was, again hundreds of years later, Holstein is basically again woken up from hibernation. Now he doesn't even recognize the folks who have again woken him up. And at the same time, Lane was also under hibernation, and then now just because they're about to reach the planet, they have woken Lane also up. Lane was very old, extremely old by that point of time. They while they were at this point of time, what also happened was awareness. So we are moving towards a climax where the two stories meet, right? And by this time, Kern's memory was again taken out from the satellite and again uploaded into one of the computer systems developed by the spiders. So Kern again was guiding them again to some extent. So she was like a godly figure, some of whose suggestions we listen to, some of whose we have to avoid, right? So as Gilgamesh approaches this planet, they notice these web-like structures around the planet which would make their ascent into the planet difficult, right? So they gear up their weapons and everything to prepare for their landings. At the other hand, the spiders also developed their own attacking space shuttles which were again directed at the Gilgamesh to intercept it before it lands on the planet. So one of these satellites which had Bianca, I think Portia, I'm not sure whether she was there, Bianca on it, she lands on this Gilgamesh and then they make their way in. So after going in, they see Cast, whom they soon bit, the spiders bite, right? So they bite off Cast and the rest of his crew members who became unconscious. They also released some sort of toxin into the air and the entirety of the crew lose their consciousness. At this point of time, everyone is unconscious except Lane and Holstein, who are again not finding any future left for them. So, right, at this point of time, the other climax, the final climax comes in front of us. So Cast, who was bitten the first by the spiders, comes running up to them and reveals that the spiders are just like them and it's not killing them. So then finally it's revealed that the spiders basically, so they were doing their own genetic research into the nanovirus, and they also got the samples of Nessel and the other dead mutineers who had reached the planet, and they have recreated the nanovirus in a way that when it infects humans, the humans would not mutate or die. They would just start looking at spiders as their own. They would not look at spiders as some alien or some out of the world creatures and be scared of them. So it would change their thinking or mind in a way that they would accept these beings as their own. So the story basically, so it's coming to an end. So Lane again, she receives a happy and that, so she dies soon. It was a happy ending. Her and Holstein's daughter, I'm not sure what the name was, I think it was Helena Holstein Lane. Again, it's shown that years down the line, Helena Holstein Lane and some other spiders set off in a different spaceship in search of different worlds, in search of different set of explorations. So the story ends in a very positive note, right? So it was contrary to Cixin Liu's story where everything has a very doom sort of end, everything gets destroyed at the end. Here we see a very optimistic future coming up to our hands, right? The story ending could have been entirely different. The spiders could have listened to Averna Kern and then could have exterminated humans, but then they used their own consciousness. Averna Kern again, she could have at any point of time supported the humans. Even at one point when she got to know that the beings that her nanovirus has helped evolve in the planet were the spiders, even at that point of time, she supported the spiders. She thought that whatever it was her own children. The spiders were her own children, and she felt more of an allegiance towards the spiders than the humans. One more point of view in the story that I felt was because of the way the story has been narrated, giving the spider's point of view, at all points of the story, you feel more empathetic towards the spiders and less empathy towards the fellow humans. because of all the vices that they have shown. Averna Kern's aversion to humans, then the conflicts and the egomaniac person that Guven was, and the self-centric views that rest of the characters had, right? So you feel more of a connect with the spiders, and somehow or the other you want the spiders to succeed. The humans, again, yes, they had their own vices and all, but at the same time everything comes to a full circle at the end of the story, right? So the ending is at least happy. The spiders and the humans, they set off in their voyage together in search of more things in the vast universe. The next book in the line, Children of Ruin. So I started that book, but during relocation I somehow misplaced that book. I have to search where I placed it so that I can continue to read it. I read like 100 pages of it, and then I lost the book in a way. So once I've settled down, I'll start reading the second part again. An extremely interesting read, especially if you consider hard sci-fi with a different sort of viewpoint and ideology that you want to experience. This is a must read for you. So thank you guys. Hope I have been able to give a coherent summary of the book. Even after listening to my story, if you read the book, you will be amazed, right? Just read the book. So thank you for listening to me, guys. Hope I have been able to build a coherent story. I would have missed a lot of plot points. I am sorry for that. Please read the book. But yeah, I have tried my best. I mean, it's more than 1.5 months and I have read multiple books after that, right? So to recall everything from memory and to narrate the story, it's a big task. Anyway, thank you. See you in the next movie or whatever wandering video I post. Thank you.